had the personal honor of working with him. Could you be able to introduce yourself to our audience? Thank you again so much for allowing us to go to Canada for today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Nice to meet everyone watching this. My name is Mushope. I'm a product designer at Meta and I'm based in the Toronto area in Canada.
Awesome, awesome. So, product designer, could you let the people know, like, give them some insights about that? Because I think when people hear of Meta, Facebook, Instagram, all of the big FANG companies, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, that they feel like it has to be very technical. So, could you help to share, like, what is a product designer?
Yeah, and I'll do some paraphrasing, but a product designer is so when you hear the designer term, your mind goes to, oh, a graphic designer and all that. But while we do visuals, we design the interfaces that you see for all this software and platforms. How it looks, how it feels, how users experience it. We go ahead and think about how this platform could evolve, how we also create designs that solve business, specific business problems and use cases. So all these come together into that product designer role. The output of what we design is visual, but then we also have to think through how a user is going to go through the experience. Basically, if you see a bad experience, if you're very frustrated with a website, there's a problem that the product designer can solve in there. And you always keep seeing that all these platforms they keep evolving daily. It's part of our role also to help to think through that. So that's a summary of what
Yeah.
I do as a product designer.
Yes, yes. And he is being very, very modest. So for him, I love him, his insights. And just to let you all know, like I still like lean on him. I created something and I was like, can I get your like expertise on it? Like, how will people see how will people see this if they look at this? So it's just so amazing. Like for myself, I have an iPhone. He's an Android lover over here, but I have an iPhone, and iPhone just went through a big update, and it really was a part of that user experience. Like now, when you get on a call, because I'm one of those people, I think as I'm talking, and so now you can actually record your conversations. It's really nice. So as he talked about, the product designer really helps to evolve it. And for me as a product manager, he was truly one of our partners that we collaborated with. So if I said that I wanted something to be majestic and dynamic, he would be a person. Then we would have these anchor weeks where we would really go all in on how will this product look like, what are their true problems, will they be happy with it, like what's the end result. So I really just want to say thank you, and I thank you for the people who design Restream, because we were talking about how this looks, and for all of the amazing product designers that do that. So being a product designer and getting to Meta, like what was it that you wanted to do when you were a kid versus what you're currently doing now? Because I don't think I ever heard of a product designer when I was a kid.
Yeah, no, way back there wasn't even like it wasn't even a thing back then. I think the term product designer is much more recent, even as far back as the early 2010s when the iPhone came out and the web started becoming a thing. It was more like a web designer role. There wasn't really like a product designer role per se. So growing up when I was a kid, I think I wanted to be an engineer, kind of, because I used to tinker a lot with a lot of things like even to I still do a lot of DIY fix stuff. I used to be that kind of person. And funny enough, I studied geology in the university, but then I studied geology. I found graphic design while I was in university. So after university, I freelanced for a bit. Then I joined some companies back then in Nigeria as a graphic designer, to a visual designer, UI designer, and now fully a product designer. So it's been an amazing journey all the way. And yeah, like if I was a kid right now, I don't back then it wasn't a thing. There wasn't the web, even the internet was a thing from like I don't have to date myself, but it wasn't a thing when I was a kid. So let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, that's so interesting because even for me knowing you for a little bit over 3 years, like I didn't know your journey of like being a freelancer, of like how you actually landed in your role. So that's
Mhm.
amazing. And I think something is so unique that you stated. So you went to the university in Nigeria.
Yes, in
And
Nigeria.
then you migrated to North America, and now, you reside in Canada, and now you work for one of the largest, like, global recognized company. That is absolutely amazing, but I'm certain that that didn't just, like, happen overnight. Like, you were faced with so many challenges. So what was one of your biggest challenges that you faced from connecting from Nigeria to landing an opportunity, any opportunity doesn't necessarily have to be like at Meta, because I know you worked at another company prior to Meta, but like, what was the difference that you had as you not navigated another country, but a totally different continent?
Yeah, I think for me the difference is, and I was, thankfully the company I worked in Nigeria before I moved, I had the opportunity to work with partners or other team members across the globe. So I had the initial challenge is you moving from a country, and it's a challenge that every immigrant faces. Coming from a country where you have your context are comfortable into a new country where you don't have the context, you're not born there, you don't have the system, the way people work here is a little bit different. What they're expecting from like interviews, resumes, even like how they do the work is very different. So the challenge is first of all living there and fitting into that system. And thankfully, when I moved to Canada in 2019, when I landed in here, because I learned design just by myself, free just watching videos, kind of, and started to work. I got in. I needed to upskill myself, which a lot of immigrants do to get into the system. So I took a boot camp when I was there. Like, and people were like, "Oh my God, you're good at what you do," but I'm like, I need a way to get into the system, and that was really very helpful because I met with other people that are Canadians. They've been here. They introduced me to the system, like even to things like, "Hey, you're coming from a very warm country. Here we have very harsh winters. How do you handle it? What is the cultural differences, and what does it actually mean to have Canadian experience?" So it's one of the hurdles that I had to overcome initially. Even one of the biggest hurdle, for example, is how to pronounce my name because I didn't know it was going to be that hard for people to pronounce. But when I get here, people will say, "Oh, can I call you Mo?" And I'm like, "No, don't do that. Call me by my name." So you have it's a challenge that you would like directly faced. But thankfully, I've always been a very optimistic person. I'm always outgoing there, like want to assimilate quickly into the system, which is something that is very important. And I think that really helped me to land my roles and got me to where I am today. So yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's so important because I think that your name is empowering. Like you said, it is who you are. Um, and I remember like when I first met you, I was like, okay, how do I pronounce it right? Like, did I say it correctly? Let me say it again. And then I was like, show. So I had to like write it like how in
Yeah.
my way as American. So it was like MOSHO, and then I was like PAY. But like even though I spelt it differently, it was my way of being able to sound it out. So that way, to your point, I can be able to pronounce and address your name correctly. So kudos to you because I have heard many people when they go to a new country, like you can change your name and they will change their name to, fit to be,
Hmm.
like American. They'll be a Ashley or a John or a Brittany. And
Hmm.
so, very much, wow, that is so incredible that you not only had to overcome the hurdle of culture, but like, how do they work over here?
Hmm.
I had no idea. So, thank you
Yeah.
for, like, enlightening me.
Yeah, definitely. It is very different. So, like, happy to share on that. So, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Cool, cool. Okay, my next question that I have for you is How did you get an opportunity for Facebook? I know you talked about you had a community of people, which seriously, for those of you all who are listening, I stress on this so much. Like Mashope was a part of my community at Facebook where I could literally lean on him and would send him things. It's so important to have a community of people, especially when you are in any stage of your career, but especially when you're new, when it's a new culture, a new job, you need a community of people that you can be able to lean on. I call them my mastermind community. So you are hearing it from two different people from very different experiences, but having a community of people that you can lean on is like truly, truly important. So how did you get from like Nigeria being a freelancer to being a Facebook or MetaMate? So how did that like journey, how did that happen?
Yeah, I think like all throughout my career journey, like when let's take it way back when I was in Nigeria because I started my corporate job back in Nigeria. Okay, I don't want to mention dates, but it's fine. But anyways, I had a freelance journey. The first company I worked for, I saw a design challenge online. I put in for it. They saw my design, like, oh, this is pretty good, and I joined that company, and it was one of the big or it's still one of the bigger e-commerce companies in Nigeria right now. And I worked there for 3 years plus. And then also from there, got an opportunity in another global company where I was like, working I had like, connecting engineering talent in Africa to companies all across the globe. And I think for that, I saw a post over there. I had a friend that worked in them like, hey, I think this really is a good fit for me. I'm gonna apply. Can you go do a referral? And that's how that particular role happened. And I was there till 2019 when I moved to Canada. And my first job in Canada was right out of the boot camp I took. I met my previous manager then, amazing person, through a demo day. And I spoke about my work. From there, we had different conversations. And I was like, hey, I'm building this team. Are you interested in joining us? And I'm like, okay, fine, let's do this. And it was like a quick chat. And from there, I landed that role. And to be now, like, to my current role at Meta, a lot of people ask me these questions. How did I get to Meta? And I tell them, I don't know because a recruiter reached out to me, and that's where the conversation started from. And people would be like, "Oh my God, did you always think you would work there?" I'm like, to be honest, my mind never even went there. I was just doing what I wanted to do. At the point where I was, I didn't have like, "Oh, I want to work for this dream company" and all that. I was just like, "I'm in this place. I'm grateful for what I have right now. If anything, and when the opportunity came in, I was like, okay, fine, this is an amazing opportunity. I'm going to go for it." And I went through the interview cycle once, and that's how I got the
Yeah,
particular
I
job.
love that.
So,
And
yeah.
so you said a recruiter reached out to you because a recruiter
Mhm,
reached out to me too. Like I
mhm,
never applied to Facebook
mhm,
until like after the actual like official like offer was done.
mhm.
But the recruiter reached out to me through LinkedIn. Did a
Yeah, it
recruiter reach
was
out to
through
you? That was
LinkedIn also.
did.
Yeah, it's through LinkedIn. And also, to like, I always tell people something too, because I think one of the factors that might have contributed to it then, because this was 2021, so it's just after the pandemic. And on LinkedIn, I was just mentoring people, genuinely helping people, posting resources, supporting different communities like ADP List, where I was volunteering and mentoring for back then. And maybe that's what had the visibility for my profile. So I really don't know what it was, but I'm grateful that whatever happened happened. So yeah.
Yes, same, same. I was also posting opportunities for people, just again commenting if I was telling him before we got started, like he had an opportunity to be on a podcast, and I was like, oh my God, like you did so great. But those things, like because I went all out. Y'all know I'm like so over the top. I was like, I'm so proud of you, like you did so great. And I listed like what I thought he did great. And then like other people started liking my comment, even though it's on his post, that got me visibility. And then people like wanted to connect with me, even though the interview wasn't about me, but because they were happy that I was sharing insights about
Mhm.
him. So please, for you all who are listening, I I brag about LinkedIn all the time. Like LinkedIn is really a great way for those of you all who are looking for career opportunities, and even for you business owners. Like I don't
Mhm.
know why you're not on LinkedIn, but for career perspective, LinkedIn is a great way and you can get visibility. He was just sharing stuff that other people had. If somebody has a post and maybe that's not your job, like you're like, hey, I don't want to be a product designer, but maybe I want to be a hospital administrator, just post that job for someone else. And literally, if your title like says like, hey, you're a hospital administrator, you never know who people are connected to. And that
Mhm.
person can like it and you can be able to get insights. So I am like so excited. I had no idea that LinkedIn helped you get your job.
Yeah,
High five.
exactly. What's through LinkedIn, and I also want to just add to a point you mentioned there. Like LinkedIn is a platform where I see a lot of people. It's when they need a job that they start doing all these things, and
Oh my gosh.
it
Go
doesn't
ahead.
really
Tell
work
that
then.
Michelle
If
thing.
you
Listen, y'all. Listen to
Yeah,
this. Listen.
yeah, exactly. Like if you're comfortable where you are, maybe you're not looking for a new job and all that. I think that you can still. It's a currency that you feel. Like it doesn't mean that you can't do while you're still looking for a job because a lot of people are, the layoffs are happening. You're applying for jobs, but while still looking for a job, you can still continue to build good connections. You can be very visible about what you're doing, so that when the time comes that you actually need that currency, you can dip it in and say, "Hey, hey LinkedIn, XYZ happened to me. I'm open for new roles." And because people know that you've been active, you've been helping other people, they in instances they can start referring you and doing all that. So it's amazing.
Yes, please. We do this. We did this all the time. Like when he was a part of my collaboration, we would always talk about how we wanted to be proactive. You always want to be proactive. You don't want it to come to the fact of layoffs. And him and I remember we were like on the phone with each other, like, did you get your email? Did you get your email? But it was a sense of like we were calm because we were doing the necessary work. We had networked with a lot of people, and layoffs come to good people. Layoffs don't necessarily always happen to bad people. So you do need to have your network. Schedule an interview. Like I was at Facebook, but I still did at least 5 interviews a year because I wanted to be ready and understand like, hey, if I need another career opportunity, how do I sound? What's the competition? How much money are they doing? Like, what's my worth now that I have Facebook under my belt? Like, what's my worth? So he said something crucial, you all. Please don't wait to the last minute. Right now, just spend 15 minutes. That's all you need. Just 15 minutes reposting, commenting on people. When they say they got a new job, congratulate them. Let yourself be known because you never know when you need somebody. Thank you so much.
No
I teach
worries.
that a lot to my clients. That is powerful. I love to hear you state that. So, in terms of other individuals, like I call everybody that's in corporate, I call them corporate inspirations because you all are places, like you said, at the dream companies, people want to get to where you are. So, what advice do you have? And I know, like, when people say advice, it's sort of hard to like put it up in once, but what is maybe one mantra that has helped you stand the test of times when you've had to navigate challenges, difficult boss, reorgs, all of that? Like, how have you been able to move past it?
Yeah, I think there are two aspects to that question. The first one is for, hey, people that want to maybe get into or work at a Meta, for example, and people that are, within their jobs, how do you have confidence? Because I can kind of like break that into two. I think for me, the first aspect is, hey, how do you get to work at a global company? I think one thing that I know definitely is there's a lot of work that has to be done. You might not be working at a global company now, but you need to figure out, hey, what do people at these kind of companies, what do they do? What are these companies looking for? And ensuring that at your current role, you are aligning with that. It might not even be your responsibility. Your company might not do things like that. But if you implement some of those practices, some of those things, and then when you get the opportunity to speak to this kind of company, you're already speaking their lingo, you understand how things work, you're investing in yourself. So you're investing in yourself to be so that when the opportunity comes, they can say, hey, your work is really pretty great. You are speaking the language and it gives you an edge over all the candidates. So definitely investing in yourself is one very important thing. And don't be afraid to connect with people that work at these companies, network with them. Not necessarily like, going to ask them and say, oh, give me a referral and, hounding them everywhere. But just understanding what that network is. So if you see an opportunity, you can ask them and say, hey, I'm interested in something at this company. You know them already. Can you give me a referral? It might not even be, you might even have had people that reach out to me because they've gotten an interview and reach out saying, hey, I have an interview. Can you help me prep? Can you see my presentation? And it's a currency you can leverage at that point because they can tell you, okay, you are not saying the right things, tailor your content what you're saying this way. So yeah, definitely that's one thing. And also, for example, if you might be in a particular place right now, everybody may or may not work at a big tech company, but wherever you find yourself at the moment, do the best job you can do there. And as you go on, opportunities start to open up for you. That's the first aspect for that question. Now, the second aspect now is you are then in the job, you are doing the work. You're also working with other amazing people across the globe. Imposter syndrome is definitely going to kick in. You'll be like, oh, and of course, also as a person of color, you'd be like, oh, like it is an opportunity I got. I'm not qualified, not good enough, and all that thing. And you just have to remind yourself that, hey, you were able to make it to this job. You were not handed out. It wasn't a handout. It was you made it here because you are good at what you do, and you have to keep reminding yourself about that. Now, at the job, definitely, of course, you have performance ratings and all that stuff. You may exceed the performance, you may not meet up, but just keep reminding yourself that hey, I'm good at what I do, and reflect inwards to yourself. And most times we can be honest about ourselves and say, hey, how am I doing? Am I doing the best I know I can do right now? If you're not doing the best, then just ensure that you are doing the best you can do right now, no matter what anyone says. All those things are just a rating at the end of the day. It might mean like a performance or a promotion and all that, but it's just something that's internal. So once you're doing the best you can do as yourself, you also, like, of course, you get a mentor, you get a coach, so that people that are at the top, you can have a view from the top and people can say, hey, even though you feel like you're doing right now, you can do these small things and they level you up. So at least those are things that have helped me at the moments when, like, hey, I know things are a bit tough
Wow.
or I'm going through those moments. I lean on other
Yeah.
people, number one. I reflect and know that, hey, am I doing this? Is this the best I can do right now? And I'm like, nah, I know I can do much more. I have the potential. And I keep working
Right.
towards that. So,
Absolutely. I mean, you touched on so many things. I think one of the ones that I always feel like people get is the imposter syndrome. And I tell people all the time, I never had imposter syndrome
mm,
ever by working at Facebook. And I think for me, I was one of the ones that could have had imposter syndrome because I don't have a degree. I am a Black woman, and
mhm,
me and him were talking about that. Like for product managers, you don't really see. I don't even think like for product designers, like you don't see a lot of Blacks. But I never felt a sense of imposter syndrome, and the
mm,
reason I believe like people don't feel imposter syndrome is because when they have a sense of community, when they feel like they belong. Like I never felt imposter syndrome because I always felt like I belong.
mm,
When I
mm,
would come and we would have our meetings, and I mean, we would meet weeks in a row, like hours upon hours. Like Michelle and I had office hours where we would just literally talk. And I always left empowered. So it was never like, oh my God, I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
mm,
It was wow, like when I connect with you and you see my ideas, and then we got like all these great ideas. I mean, it was incredible. So I think imposter syndrome only comes when you don't feel that sense of belonging. Like we
mm,
talked about things that made us different from other people, and it's because people make those things known than the things that makes you like comfortable. And for me, like I am very different. Like I would wear my hair like how I wear my hair now. Like I wore it at Facebook. Like I think like that was one of the incredible things. Like when I met Miss Chope and he had his hair twisted, and I was like, oh my God, like I love that. And so like I went for my hair being straight. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna wear my hair. And then like people were like, you change your hair a lot. And it was like, because I feel comfortable here,
mhm,
like you really do feel like you belong in like your little community. Now, there's always gonna be people that don't, but I feel like that sense of imposter syndrome comes only when those voices yell at you and like let you know you don't belong here. What you
mm,
did
mm,
was wrong. Why are you doing this? And that's why when I hear the word like imposter syndrome, I'm like, it's not necessarily imposter syndrome. I really feel it's that sense of belonging because I will never
mm,
tell you, oh, Mashope, if you go to a club for product designers, you wouldn't feel like you have imposter syndrome because you're like, oh, okay, we're all product designers. You know, we have different
mm,
experience. I can take this. You feel that sense of belonging. And I think that I had an opportunity. Shout out to Forbes. I appreciate you all for featuring me in this. But I had shared this with Forbes that like the only reason why people feel that imposter syndrome is because they don't belong. When I
mm,
feel like I belong, like it knocks down so many barriers. Like he's in Canada, I'm in Houston, Texas, and like when we first met and we did our thing, like it was immediately like, oh, we got to connect and we got to meet every month. You know, it really just opened up. So I think that for most people who feel that imposter syndrome, you are feeling it because of some part of you like has that sense of like you don't belong because
mm,
like you said, you got the job. They hired you for a reason. You're not a DEI hire. You're not doing this because you know such and such. No, you really do. You are qualified. You're worthy and deserving of it. But then it's that do I feel that sense of belonging? And that's what adds that layer of like imposter syndrome.
mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
valid,
Yeah.
valid, valid.
Oh, I like that two snaps. The two
Yeah,
snaps.
just that.
I love that. I love that. So our second to last question, how do you manage stress and maintain a sense of excellence? I think everybody knows it's been on all the news channel, like, you know, at Meta, we have to work with sense of intensity, like we have to be excellent all the time. So how did you manage stress and maybe even like right now this isn't the most stressful that you've been, but like how do
Mhm.
you manage stress, you know, that peak seasons that we have and then still maintain sort of a level of excellence that you continue to operate at?
Yeah. For me, of course, like, and this can be different for everyone, but in general, I believe that life is a series of ups and downs, and ups and downs in the sense of there's a time for you to grind, like, go really hard, the time for you to step back, like, the up is like, hey, I'm, grinding, I want to achieve something. Time for you to say, hey, like, I just want to take it easy, and knowing those ups and downs. If you keep staying at the grinding level for a long time, you will burn out because you run on fumes. You need to know when to recharge yourself. So how do I go through all these busy seasons? I know there's a time for me to, go, 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 do all this, like, focus on impact, drive initiatives, and do all that. And there's a time for me to be like, you know what? I'm not gonna work this weekend. I'm just gonna sit down. I need to spend time with my family. I need to spend, like, with my friends. I need to relax and not be moving all the time. And also too, there are times where you just also, like, for example, you might be feeling like at a at your end with, like, hey, I don't know what to do. That's why, like, leaning on people that are around your community, talking to other people and saying, hey, I am facing this and I need some help. Can someone help me out with this? It really, really helps because there's some times where actually, if you try to do things, there's only how so much you can go alone. So if you have, like, hey, have a trusted mentor, have some other friends that can just kind of say, hey, I'm running through this challenge. How is everyone else doing this? And people can offer you insight, support. Like, hey, you're trying to cut this tree with a dull axe, sharpen that axe and come back and cut it, and it's going to be easier. So that has kind of really helped me to go through those tough, intense moments. And they happen. They definitely happen where you're kind of worried of, oh my God, you've done, and everybody, most people at, Meta were all type A's, were, very high achieving, and you feel like, hey, I'm not doing enough. And one thing has helped me too over the recent years, there are two things. Number one, not comparing myself with people. I don't know what their journey is. I don't know what they are doing. And I see one person, oh my God, that person got a promo, and you feel like, oh, I'm not doing enough. But you don't know their story, you don't know their background, you don't know the kind of things that they've done to get there. And also, I've kind of realized that, hey, so I have some things that are under my control. Anything that's not under my control, I leave it out. And I think the final thing for me also is I'm a Christian. So I also pray about it at least up until I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna have those things worry about me when the time comes. It's going to happen, and that's really really helped me to not just like not get to that point when I'm burning out. And if I need to take out some time from work, I take out time. I disconnect completely. I go unpack, go do things I'm passionate about. Work is going to happen. If anything happens, the company can easily, say, hey, we're going to kick everybody out, no matter if you're high performing or low performing. You are about a number to the company. And I always say these things to some of my colleagues too that, look, 3 years ago, we did some projects and some things. We don't even remember them right now. Like, and in all my jobs, like I can't remember the nitty gritty of the day to day of those jobs for over like 10 years now. But I'll remember the people that I work with. I remember how they made me feel. I remember how the company made me feel. Those are the things that will stay, not the, oh, you did this particular project, you got this impact and all that stuff. You won't remember those things. So do things for yourself. Take it easy. Don't go out there burning out. There's a time where you need to really work very hard, but know when to step back and just, you know, go on that low zone. So that's my own plug.
Wow. Wow.